We continue now at the top of Daf 90a Daf from Meseches Bava Kamma. This is Bava Kamma Daf 90a. On the previous summit, the Gemara had a machlokas in Brises. Let's say you have a situation where a wife brings into the marriage avdei melug. She brings in slaves that now the husband, he's going to have the rights to the payros of those slaves, but she is actually the owner of those slaves. She has brought them into the marriage. So the question was, if she knocks out the tooth or the eye of that eved, does the eved go free? And that was a contradiction in Brises. One Brises said the eved does go free, and the other Brises said the eved does not go free. And the Gemara was giving various explanations of the contradiction within the Brises, and the Gemara now is suggesting that maybe both of the Brises agree to the Takana Susha. Again, the Takana Susha essentially strengthens the kinyan peiros that the husband has, and generally would prevent the woman, let's say the wife, from selling the avadim. And so therefore, if you hold the Takana Susha, since the husband's kinyan peiros is strengthened, therefore if she were to knock out the tooth or the eye of the eved really shouldn't go free. And so the question is, why does the eved go free according to one of the Brises? And the Gemara says it could be that Brisa follows what Rava says, because Rava says, hektish chametz v'shichur, that if somebody's maktish something, if you have chametz, let's say on Pesach, or also setting an eved free, as we're going to see in a moment, mafkiyan midei shibud, that can undo a shibud, and that's exactly what's happening over here. You have a situation of shichur, and that is undoing the shibud. Rashi here explains, hektish asa shoro apotiki. Now the case over here is a situation where you have an apotiki, so we're designating, the person designated a particular ox as an apotiki that was supposed to be collected by the creditor for some debt that is owed. Lebal chova, that's for the creditor. V'chazar lo v'zeh v'hikdisho kedushas haguf lemizbech. And then let's say, after he says that this shore is an apotiki and really you have the right to collect this shore from me, then he goes ahead and he says that this shore is going to be a korban. He gives it a kedushas haguf lemizbech. And so Rashi says, hifkiya shibude de malva muter lemizbech. What happens is that the shibud of the malva actually goes away. Even though the malva has a shibud as an apotiki, it goes away. And this animal can be brought as a korban on the mizbeach. Ve'ein bo mishum gezel, it's not considered gezel, it's not considered stealing. Sheshvach hektish mafkio, because the fact that it was made hektish, that undoes the shibud hol v'lo yekane lo mamish, because the creditor didn't really own the shore. Ela omed ligvos hemen, it was just something that he could collect from, and therefore the hektish can undo that shibud. Rashi notes, v'dafka kedushas haguf. Now this is only true when we say the word hektish here. It has to be kedushas haguf, meaning it has to be something that's going on the mizbeach. Avol kedushas damim, but let's say he just makes it hektish in terms of the value. He's donating it for the repair of the Beis HaMikdash. Lo, so that actually wouldn't undo the shibud. Lo alimi lafkue shibud malva. That would not be enough to undo the shibud of the malva. Titanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, Mosef Malva o dinar upodes hanachasim. In that situation, the Malva can add a dinar, and then he can actually redeem it. Hanachasim ha'elu, he can redeem these nechasim, this property, al menas l'shalim l'ishes ksubasa, in order to pay the wife for ksuba. But Meseches erchen, all of that is taught in Meseches erchen. Rashi also notes v'tachriche hames. Let's say you have shards for the burial of a dead person. Kedushas haguf dami. That also would be similar to this case of kedushas haguf hektish umafki, and that also would undo the shibud v'nesaron b'hana, and it would become prohibited to get benefit from it. And Rashi continues, chametz, again, chametz is also something that can undo a shibud. Nachri shehilves Yisrael al chemsa. The case over here would be, let's say the nachri is the creditor. He lent money to a Jew, and the chametz is like the apotiki. That's what the nachri is going to collect. V'lo hirhino etzlo. Now that chametz is not in the nachri's actual property. It's just that the nachri has the right to collect. The mechusar guvaini, so he still has to collect it. Shayomed hachametz b'beis shel Yisrael. The case has to be where the chametz right now is in the house of the Yisrael. Ve'ein lenachri olav ela shibud. So all the nachri has is a shibud. So what happens is as follows: Keshaba is biur, when the time of the destruction of chametz on Pesach comes, mafkia esra chametz as shibud hanachri. So the prohibition of having chametz actually undoes the shibud of the non-Jew, v'chayiv Yisrael levaro, and instead it says that the Yisrael has to destroy that chametz. So that's the second thing that can undo the shibud. V'hadetanan b'psachim, Rashi also notes, what about the Mishnah in Psachim? It says nachri shehil Yisrael al chemso muter b'hanol achar Pesach. There it says that if a nachri lends a Yisrael, and again, the chametz is what the nachri is supposed to collect as the creditor. He's supposed to collect that for the loan. So there it says the opposite. It says that the chametz is mutter in Hano after Pesach. It's as if that chametz was really by the non-Jew. It's not considered that it's by the Jew. So the answer to that question is Muki lo Rava Hasam. Rava over there says that case is talking specifically B'shirino etzlo. It's when the chametz is actually in the rishus of the nachri. That's a different case. Shenasnu b'mashkon b'yad nachri. He gave it as a collateral to the nachri, the lo mechusar guvaina, that it's not something that still has to be collected. V'lav shibud, that's not called a shibud. Elakniya mamish, that's actually called the non-Jew owning the chametz. So those are two separate cases. And finally, the last case, shichur, is asa avdu apotiki. Again, the case of shichur, the classic case, is the person designated the slave slave to be an apoteki the creditor is going to collect, and then v'shichro halova, then the borrower goes ahead and frees the slave, meshuchro, so the slave will actually be free, v'gov v'zechovo mimakam acher, and this person can collect the debt from somewhere else. And we're applying this idea of Rava to our case. We're saying that in our case as well, over here you have a situation where the wife owns the eved, but the husband has the peiros because the husband has a kinyan peiros who was brought in as a nechse milug, and we're saying if she knocks out the tooth or the eye of the eved, that's like a shichur that is motzi from the shibud of the husband, and again, according to that one brisa, the eved will actually go free. And so the Gemara now says, Lema de Rava Tanoihi, let us suggest that Rava is actually Machlokas Tanaim, because there was the other brisa said that the Eved does not go free. That seems to go against Rava. The Gemara says not necessarily. Lo no de Kuli Alma Islu de Rava. It could be everybody agrees with Rava. V'hacha, but over here in this particular case, because again, this is not exactly the same case. The case of Rava is when you have the Eved designated as an apoteki. So over here, Al Mu'ar Rabbanan l'shibud debal. Here, when you're talking about Nechse Melug, it could be that the Rabbanan again strengthen the shibud that the husband has, and therefore in this situation, perhaps the Eved would not go free. And the Gemara continues with another answer. If you want, I could say another answer in terms of explaining these brises. The Kuli Alma Leslu Lahani Tanoi Takon Asusha could be everybody does not agree to the Takon Asusha. If you do not agree to the Takon Asusha, so then we're not strengthening the shibud of the husband. And then really, if that's the case, so really the Eved should go free if the wife knocks out the tooth or the eye of the Eved. However, it could be v'hacha b'kinyan peiros kekinyan haguf dami kamiflagi. Here they're actually arguing whether kinyan peiros is kekinyan haguf or not. According to the shita that says kinyan peiros is kekinyan haguf, so then automatically the shibud of the husband is strong, and that's why the Eved would not go free. And the Gemara says, "Uvepluksa dahani tanoi." If you say there's a machlokis about whether kinyan peiros is kekinyan haguf dami, again, until this point we were assuming everybody agrees kinyan peiros is lav kekinyan haguf. Now we're saying there's really a machlokis tanoim whether kinyan peiros is kekinyan haguf or not. It would be the same machlokas as in the following brisa. Titania, as we learned in a brisa, hamocher avdo la'acher. If somebody sells his eved to somebody else, upasak imo al menas sheyishamshenu shloshim yom. But he makes a deal and he says that for the next 30 days, the seller says, I'm going to be able to use this eved. So the seller is the one here that has the kinyan peiros, and the buyer again ultimately owns the eved, but he's not going to really use the eved for 30 days. So there's a machlokas in terms of the halach of yomo yomayim. There's a din yomo yomayim by an eved. That halacha essentially is that there's a leniency by the master. If the master should hit the eved and the eved dies within 24 hours, so then the master is responsible. But if it's after 24 hours, it's after yom o yomayim, which essentially means 24 hours, so then there's a special leniency that applies only to the master, and the master is not held responsible for the death of that eved kanani in that situation. So what happens in this situation where the seller only has a kinyan peiros? The seller is not really the owner of the eved. The question is, does he get the leniency of yom o yomayim? And then the buyer also at this point in time, he doesn't have a kinyan peiros, he's the ultimate owner, so does he have the leniency of yom o yomayim? This is a machlokas tanoim in the brisa. Rabbi Meir says, Rishon yeshno b'din yom o yomayim. This first person, meaning the seller, he does get the leniency of yom o yomayim, mimnei shutachtav, because right now the eved is serving him, and therefore, what does Rabbi Meir hold? Kasavar kinyan peiros kekinyan haguf dami. It's clear that Rabbi Meir holds kinyan peiros is kekinyan haguf. Rabbi Yehuda on the other hand, he says sheni yeshno b'din yom o yomayim. It's actually the second person, meaning the buyer. He's the one that has the leniency of yom o yomayim mivnei shukasba, because it really belongs. The eved really belongs to the second individual. Kasavar kinyan peiros lav kekinyan haguf dami. Rabbi Yehuda holds that the kinyan peiros the seller has is not considered like a kinyan haguf. And Rabbi Yossi says shnehem yeshnon b'din yom o yomayim. Both the seller and the buyer get the leniency of yom o yomayim. Zevim neishu tachtav, zevim neishu kaspo. Each one has some ownership. This one actually, the eved is under him, is under his control. The other one is the actual owner. And so therefore, according to Rabbi Yossi, what does Rabbi Yossi hold? Misavkale. Rabbi Yossi actually is in doubt. Kinyan peiros ika kinyan haguf dami. Ilavka kinyan haguf dami. He's in doubt. Is kinyan peiros like a kinyan haguf or not? And when you have a situation of doubt, v'safik nefashos lahakil. When you have a capital case, you have to be lenient. Over here, you're not going to put the person to death. You're going to say we will apply the leniency to both of them because of the rule of safik nefashos lahakil. And finally, Rabbi Eliezer says shneim einon b'din yom o yomayim. They are both not under the leniency of yom o yomayim. Zelafi sheino tachta v'zelafi sheino kaspo. This one because it's not in his reshus, and the other one because he doesn't really own the eved. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava says, my time with Rabbi Eliezer, what's the reason of Rabbi Eliezer? Meaning Rabbi Eliezer seems to say that the person needs to be the full owner to get the leniency of Yom or Yomayim, but if there's any lacking in the ownership, let's say the person only has the Kinyan Peiros, or the person only does not have the Kinyan Peiros, then that's not going to be enough for the leniency of Yom or Yomayim. What's the reason of Rabbi Eliezer? The reason is Amar Krutz, because the Pasuk says, Ki chaspo hu, because it's his kesef, means to say, kaspo hamiyuchad lo, has to be totally designated for him. He has to be the full owner if there's anything lacking in the ownership, so then he doesn't get the leniency of Yom or Yomayim. And the Gemara continues, Kamma noz lahad amar Amemar. So who does the following statement of Amemar, which Tana is Amemar following? Amemar says, Ish v'isha shemachru b'nichsei milug. Let's say the husband or the wife, if either of them try to sell the nichsei milug, lo asu v'lo klum, it's nothing. It's not going to be considered a sale because they're not really considered to be the full owner. And the Gemara says, come on, Rabbi Eliezer. So who's Amemar following? He's following Rabbi Eliezer. Just like Rabbi Eliezer says, it has to be kaspo hamiyuchad lo in terms of the halach of Yom Yomayim. So too, that's what Amemar is saying in terms of selling the nichsei milug. And the Gemara continues, Man tana lahad tana rabbanan, who is the author of the following brisa? Mishechetzio eved v'chetzio ben chorin. Let's say you have an eved which is half an eved but half free. V'chein eved shel shnei shutfin. Or also, let's say you have an eved that belongs to two partners. Ein yotzin barashay evarim she'enan chozrin. So such an eved is not going to go free if one of the major limbs, it doesn't only apply to the tooth or the eye, it applies to any of the 24 limbs that are not going to heal. So the halach over here is, since the eved is not fully owned, we say that the eved does not go free barashay evarim. Amrle Rav Mordechai Rav Ashi. Rav Mordechai said to Rav Ashi, Hachi Amri Mishmei de Rava. This is what they say in the name of Rava. Rabbi Eliezer. This is also, it's the same Rabbi Eliezer. Milo Amar Rabbi Eliezer Kaspo Hamiyuchadlo. Didn't Rabbi Eliezer say there's a halacha again by Yom or Yomayim of Kaspo Hamiyuchadlo? It has to be under the full ownership. So Hachanami here also, when we're talking about going free for the Eved, Avdo Hamiyuchadlo, it has to be his Eved that is fully designated for him. And Rashi explains, going on Amemar's comment, Ish v'ish, of the husband and the wife, again, they're not able to sell the nichsei milug. Afilu machru shneim ke'echad. What that means is even if together they're trying to sell the nichsei milug, that is not going to be effective according to Amemar. Lo asu v'lo klum. What they do is nothing. She'eno lo lezev v'lo lezev, because really no one is the owner. V'meis echad mehem ze hanisher motzim yidei halakuchas. And let's say one of them would die, so whichever one is still alive would actually be able to take it away from those who tried to purchase it. It would not be a good sale. And Rashi notes, v'lo damim l'shut from dialma. This is not similar to a normal situation of partners, where of course together the partners could sell the item. Because over there, each one has a portion in all of it, meaning half ownership in the entire thing. But over here, kulan knuyan la guf. So this person has the entire guf. In this case, by nichsei milug, the wife owns the actual property. V'chulan knuyan lo leperos, and the husband has fully all of the fruits of the property. V'leka miyuchad lo lezev lo lezeh. That's not called miyuchad. It's not designated for either of them, and that's why it's not going to be a good sale. And again, Rasha Evarim refers to Chaf Dalid Hein. It's the 24 limbs, Sho Eved Yotze B'han L'cheres, which allow a slave to go free. Beparakam into Kiddushin, that is taught in the first parak of Kiddushin. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Hatzokeya lechavero. This is some kind of injury of the ear. We'll see Rashi in a moment. No sein lo sela. So the person who does that to his friend, he has to give him a sela. That is a sela as a payment for boshes, for the humiliation. Rashi says, Hatzokeya lechavero. The first pshat is hiko al ozno. If he hits him in his ear, lashon mori. That is the explanation of my Rebbe. Says Rashi, lishna achrina. Another lashon acher. Another explanation. Tokeya mamish. It actually means that he like blows a shofar, makes a sound. He injures the ear in that fashion. So again, the payment for the boshes, no sein lo sela, Rashi says, mishum boshes, that payment for boshes is one sela. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, mishum Rabbi Yossi Haglili, Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Rabbi Yossi Haglili, moneh, that the payment is more than that, it is a moneh. A moneh is actually 25 sloim. And the Mishnah continues, Staro, if he slaps him, let's say one person slaps another, no sein lo masayim zuz, so then he has to pay him 200 zuz. Rashi says, Staro al alechi, means he slaps him on the cheek. So the payment for that boshes is 200 zuz. La'achar yodo, if he slaps him with the back of his hand, so that's considered more embarrassing. No sein lo arba meo zuz, then he gives him 400 zuz. Tzaram ba'azno, if he pulls his ear, talash besaro, if he pulls his hair, rokak v'higia boroko, if he spits at him and the spit reaches the person, havir taliso mimeno, if he removes the person's cloak, para rosha isha b'shuk, if he uncovers the head of a woman in the marketplace. For all of those, the payment for boshes, no sein lo arba meo zuz, the payment is 400 zuz. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf 90a Daf.